I just want to set the record straight for the last time for all the naysayers and all the negativity out there that I did not kill Gary Coleman. I did not kill Gary Coleman. Period. I did not fucking kill him. The reason why I'm here today for the follow-up is to straighten everything out. And I feel like a lot of people just have animosity towards me and they don't fully understand the full picture. But I think everybody is also so disconnected from what the truth and the facts are. And the reason why I'm here is because, of course, I was dissatisfied with the overall documentary. I just want to ask people, what do you consider a gold digger? Gary's financial shape was, his parents took a lot from him, and all of these people that knew Gary before me, they took advantage of him. They knew him in the manner of taking. And I did not know him like that. And so, this misconception of being a gold digger is so far-fetched out there. So Gary, he had to work just like everybody else. I mean, he was a normal guy, just the fact that he had celebrity to him. And I actually used to work at the airport, the old airport, years ago. And then I was working at the Walmart by our house. So it was in Payson, Utah, not Santa Quinn. And it was fun. Like, I loved it. The people were great. But then after a while, they just started to ask questions and ask me, hey, your boyfriend's wealthy, he's rich, why are you working here, XYZ. But Gary was very supportive, and he's like, I will love you either way. If you want to work, I'll support that. If you don't, I'll support that. And I remember when he would go on gigs and he would be gone for a while, I finally was like, hey, can you get your agent to possibly get an agreement for me to fly out with you to these places that you're working? And that was really fun. That was really great, memorable experiences that I did have, because I got to meet new people. I got to do things that I would have never gotten to do if I didn't, pitch that to him and be like, hey, is this okay? Clearly, our relationship was not private. It couldn't be. It was always in the public eye, unfortunately. And whatever happened behind closed doors, everybody thought and saw as tumultuous. But yeah, we had our struggles. We had our issues. Gary, he was a depressed guy. And there were days where he had his highs and there were days where he had his lows. But, ultimately, he pursued me. And I just felt on top of the world because I didn't know him like everybody else did. I didn't see the celebrity aspect of it. I just knew him as a normal guy, and I loved him for him. Short, tall, indifferent, I didn't care. He was so good to me. And, I remember one time he was telling me one day, because if I doubted anything in our relationship, he had said, if you doubt anything between us, he's like, just know that I have enough love for the both of us. And I have never, ever, ever heard a guy say anything that sweet or that real or anything that came from the heart that way. And it just meant so much to me to just feel loved and protected. He protected me like I didn't even know why he was like that with me. Like, in the beginning, he would never tell people who I was. He would never tell anyone my name. And it just felt so good to have protection and somebody just love me enough to be like, hey, you know what? She's mine. And, you know, nobody could take that away from me. That bond, I'm so blessed to have known him. We had a great bond. And for everybody that, you know, wants to just like try and tear it down and ruin it and have this narrative, they're just completely wrong about it. You know, we had our spats like every couple does. And yeah, there were some physical attacks on both ends. But, you know, I did not come from a very good upbringing. And I feel like sometimes that anger or that physical that did come out was due to that. It's not that I wanted that, but I think, you know, with my upbringing, there were a lot of triggers that set that. But he was also manic depressive, and on his end, it was both ways, you know. And so there were times where, I mean, he threw a paint can at me one time, and that's what ultimately ended him in jail. And I don't know what set him off. I don't know all the reasonings of his good or bad days because I wasn't in his mind and I can't read his mind. But when he had bad days, they were bad days. They were sad, heartbreaking days. And unfortunately, we both had to kind of pay the consequence of the physical of it, but we got over it. We're still together. We loved each other through and through. And I mean, if I had to, of course, I would do it all over again. I would do it again. And it's, I guess, unfortunate that, you know, being in the public eye, that, you know, there always has to be a bad guy. And of course, since I'm literally the ex-wife, you know, I'm the villain, and Hollywood portrays me out to be the villain, and they want to edit and, you know, just turn things around and just make me look like I'm scrap metal, like I'm nothing. And, you know, what people don't understand either is that I was a huge part of his life up until he passed away. And like all these allegations and all these twists and edits and disclaimers of other people, you know, are heartbreaking, and they do hurt of me because I have feelings as well. But in the end, I want people to understand too that Gary was also an adult and he could make his own decisions, and he did choose to be with me. And, you know, he never allowed anybody to intervene with that or get in the way of that.
What's the problem? Tell me what's happened. I had my husband go make me some food downstairs. He just got home. I heard this big bang. I went downstairs, blood everywhere. I don't know if he's okay. I'm not down there right now because I have seizures. If I get stressed out, I'm going to seize. I just don't want him to die. I'm freaking out like really bad, you know?
I want to clear up all this confusion and misconception and drama that people have on me, and a narrative for sure about this stair issue. And the reason I think that everybody is so confused about it was because of Gary's last interview on The Insider, where he had talked about how he had a little scratch on his head because he had fallen down the stairs.
She says you did.
You know what? I have this on my head because I fell down the stairs. I don't want people thinking that my wife is abusing me.
Why don't you want to answer the question about whether you abused
Because
your
you
wife
can
and
yourself.
everything else? Pardon me?
You can go yourself.
And I think that is so important to clear this shit up, because let me tell you, for 14 and a half years, it's getting pretty damn old to have to hear this constantly. And if I had done anything to Gary, he would have fully addressed that. We are people that have no filter, and he definitely was someone that straight up told the truth. And if he thought for even 1 second or minute that I had hurt him, he would have even said that on camera. And clearly on the death certificate it has accident. It was accidental. And I just want to clear that up because personally, the attacks are still there. And I just think people are so disconnected from the layout of my house to where the stairs were and where the kitchen was. And honestly, if he would have fallen or I would have pushed him down the stairs, he would have had frontal laceration and not a back laceration. And so he either blacked out, had a seizure, hit the back of the countertop in the kitchen and fell, and that's what happened. I am clearly unsure of how the laceration got there. This police report speaks for itself. It states in here there's no foul play. And I think it is important for people to also know that when officers arrived, that he was lucid, he was talking. They noticed that I was assisting him because they wouldn't have it in here if that wasn't real and that wasn't true. And the nice thing is the rescue workers, the medical personnel walked with him to the ambulance. And, the reason I did not go was the fact that I had health issues. And what most people don't know is I actually had a seizure a month before he passed away. And I was not in the best physical shape to have handled that situation a lot better. And it was really, really hard for me because they were giving me antidepressants because of my inner ear problem. And I was taking all these wacky medications that just were not helping me. So I was basically just bedridden. They were actually doing the investigation in front of me. And, I just want to tell people out there like, hey, just because you want to have this narrative, it's not okay. And to just attack me this way is not okay. Because you don't personally know who I am. And I had no clue. I was disoriented myself. I had no clue what was going on.
No, I've known you for years, and I never believed you killed him.
Thank you. I think that people need to really understand the reasoning for that. And I think that people do need to realize I was young. I'm not in the medical field. I'm not trained. So my 911 call did sound super frantic. But also what people need to know is I did call 911 for a reason. There's a reason for that. It's because I love him. I care about him. And I just wanted to make sure he was okay. And, since the documentary was released, I have had nasty messages, random people messaging me and just saying, I know you did it. Why are you trying to cover it up still? And just horrible things. And just the accusations just continue. But what's worse is the fact that people just flat out say, you're a murderer. You killed him. Who the hell are you? All right, so recently there was someone in the documentary that was talking about how I wasn't there for Gary and that the garage door just closed and I was just being very sketchy, and just hiding a bunch of things and XYZ, right? This person basically just said, there are a lot more questions than there are answers. And he knows who I'm talking about, but he doesn't know anything. He was not there. And there were reasons, like I stated before, why I did not go in the ambulance because I was sick. I was dealing with my own health issues as well. And I honestly, personally thought, okay, he's just gonna go get stitched up. He's gonna come home. That's when I found out later that he had bleeding in his brain. So he fell on a Wednesday. Thursday that morning, they were taking him to dialysis and he went into cardiac arrest.
Former child television star Gary Coleman is in critical condition near his Utah home, according to a hospital spokesperson. The 42-year-old Coleman was admitted to a Provo facility on Wednesday, but no other details are being released right now. The actor is best known for his stint on TV's Different Strokes, but he has suffered a string of financial and legal problems over the years, as well as several health problems. In February, Coleman suffered a seizure on the set of The Inciter. He's had at least 2 kidney transplants and ongoing dialysis as the result of kidney disease he suffered as a child. Coleman has also had heart surgery that was complicated last fall by pneumonia, according to his attorney. Ross Simpson, The Associated Press.
Police have confirmed that Diff'rent Strokes actor Gary Coleman's death has been ruled an accident. An autopsy found Coleman died of natural causes after an accidental fall. The 42-year-old actor died at a Provo hospital 2 days after his fall at his home in May. He was taken off life support after suffering a brain hemorrhage. Santaquin, Utah Police Chief Dennis Howard says the release of the autopsy brings the police investigation into the death to a close.
You know, everybody has this questioning of, why did she pull the plug? Why did she do this? Why did she do that? Well, now, here's why I did this. Because there were 2 doctors that said he is not going to make it. He's not going to recover. Like, he was gone Thursday. I went to visit him. My dad and I went to visit him, and his eyes were dilated. He was already gone. There were so many claims of numerous people stating that they had reached out to me. The parents did not reach out to me, period. We had called them that day. And of course, Gary's mother, typical. This is typical Edmonia. It's fine. I don't care to say this on record. She lies, and we know this, and they all lie. But the first thing that she asked was, when is the funeral? She did not care about Gary, period. Because let me tell you, somebody that asks that for the first thing that you say when you call them, that's ridiculous. Or that's what they say when you call them is ridiculous. The others are just so disconnected from the truth. And I just don't feel like they have any credentials of what they were saying on camera in the documentary. For one, Todd, no, never had contact with me. Dion, we never had contact that day that Gary passed away. So for him to say that in the documentary, it was not true at all. He would have been the last person, if any, that I would have called and let him know. Because here's the deal. Gary did not want anything to do with him or Todd. He did not like the fact that I tried to reconcile their friendship. He hated that. And then he kind of like despised me because of that. And I felt really bad. I didn't know how bad their relationships ended with those 3, meaning Gary, Todd, and Dion. So Gary didn't like the fact that I was trying to get them all back together and talk. And that was really hard because I was like, I'm so sorry. I didn't think it would be bad to just step in and have you reconnect. But yeah, he was just like, Gary told me this straight up. He's like, Shannon, when I'm done with somebody, I am done. I cut them off. I changed my number. I don't talk to them at all. You know, the funny thing is I had one good person that did reach out to me. And it actually meant more to me than anything that I could ever even ask for. And it was Shavar Ross, who played Dudley on Diff'rent Strokes. And I can't remember the full message because it was years ago, but he basically just said, hey, through all of this, like, I know that you did not do anything wrong. And that just meant so much to me. And even right now, I still want to cry just thinking about it because I went through so much hell from everybody. And somebody that understands the Hollywood business that came out and just said, hey, I don't believe any of this phony business. Like, I don't even know you, but I'm there for you. And I think that you're great and that you didn't do anything wrong really meant a lot to me. You know, Gary had a former agent at some point in his life who decided to intervene in our relationship. And, you know, in the business, I've learned that you keep personal, and business. You don't mix at all. And he didn't like me. And we have had a few words before. And he got really offended when I was like, where are you for Gary? Like with his medical, like how come you're not in Utah dealing with it? You've never been here. Like, how dare you judge me on things that you know nothing of? And he just was bitter towards me, and I just don't know why. But at the end, before Gary passed away, he'd said some really crappy thing to Gary. And he said, hey, Gary, if you continue to stay with Shannon, I will no longer represent you. And I was like, okay. I told Gary, I said, hey, I said, you know, I've never made you pick anyone in or out of your life. I was like, you've clearly done it on your own and you know who has your best interest. I have never made you choose. I never will. And that I have been here to deal with all your medical needs, and I've been here to support you when everybody else has not. And it's been really hard on me to have to do that. But where has everybody else been? Like everybody that claims that they are his friend, a lot of people in the documentary especially, where were they in the end? They were never his friends. These people were not his friends. They were a past, you know, just a flash from the past and just unfortunate people that Gary crossed paths with. And they just didn't deserve to be a part of his life. But Gary had cut them off for a reason. So anyway, in the end, you know, I had that discussion with Gary and I said, look, I was like, it's ultimately your choice of what you want to do. And he cut him off. The windows are way up high. And that moment, she spit beer on me. She did. She spit beer on me. Believe it or not, she did. Went upstairs, locked the door, told Gary what happened. Gary was like, she did what? He was really, really mad, really angry. So the next thing we do is we hear her hauling butt up. Yes, I would love to discuss a lot of things about the documentary. There were a lot of things that were omitted, left out. There were some truths, some not. I think personally, a lot of it was just back and forth blame game. I really do. I think that everyone is so disconnected with their stories. Now, some of it may have been true, and some of the memories that those others had with Gary, I'm not saying they're not true, but when it comes to facts about certain things, like the ex-girlfriend, she was never a part of Gary's life that way. Gary had told me that they were never an item, that at one point they did experiment, but when he liked her, she didn't like him, and then vice versa on that. But I think since Gary had pursued me on church ball, that's clear that those two were not together at all. And he chose me because I was far away from Hollywood and he wanted to get out. He wanted to get away. He didn't want anybody nowhere near him or, you know, that sort of Hollywood lifestyle. And I think it made it better on my end because I did not know who he was when I met him. I had no clue. I didn't like TV as a kid. I just didn't follow up with any of that. And so that made it so much easier and better for me that I got to know him on a personable level instead of a fan level. And her and Gary's friendship was like done a long time ago. It ended a long, long time ago. And he told me one day, he was like, I should have never brought her here to Utah. Never. When I met her, it was at night and we were at the motel. And it was Comfort Inn, Quality Inn. I cannot remember exactly, but they had left this out in the documentary too. No, they did leave it out, right? Anyway.
Yeah, tell me about the first time you met Anna Gray.
When I met her, Gary and I were actually staying in the Quality Inn in Payson, Utah, before he actually got the authorization and the keys to the house, like the final signing and sealing, whatever, all that. And so we were staying in the Quality Inn there, or the Comfort Inn. You know what? Forgive me, Comfort Inn, I think it was then. Quality Inn, Comfort Inn, whatever. And you get it. We were staying there, and she actually drove the U-Haul. And I met her one night, you know, and I was like, hey, my name's Shannon, nice to meet you. And I could just tell immediately just darkness, complete darkness, cold shoulder, very standoffish, not friendly at all. And I was like, I thought nothing of it. I was 19. I was like, I'm young, like this, okay, whatever. Maybe she's tired. You know, she drove all the way out here. So I'm like, she just, you know, let her go in her room, sleep it off. I didn't really think much of it. But as time went on, is when it got bad. And it was horrible. And she would just do insane things that I never, even to this day, could understand, other than the fact that she was completely jealous of me. Because I found out later that Gary told me that she was jealous of me. Okay, so anyway, long story short, her and Gary's friendship ended a long time ago. And he told me, he's like, I don't even know why I brought her to Utah. He's like, our friendship was just done. And he's like, especially if I would have known that, you know, she was going to cause all these problems like she did, he's like, I really would have never brought her here. Anyway, so they left it out in the documentary, and it kind of upset me because the narrative that she put out there is just so wrong, completely wrong. Her truth is not truth. And when I met her, it was when she drove the U-Haul in, which was like a day and a half, not 4 days. Like, if it takes you 4 days to get here from California, you have issues. So I met her that night at the hotel, and Gary did not have the keys yet to the house. It wasn't finalized yet for like 2 days. So there's that, right? And I was very young. I was 19 when I met Gary. And I went up to her, and I am pretty friendly with people. Like, I will give people the benefit of the doubt, right? So I went up to her, I introduced myself. I'm like, hi, I'm Shannon. So nice to meet you. You know, whatever. And so since it was late at night, she was tired, but she was very standoffish, very unapproachable. And that wasn't a red flag to me at the time because, like I said, I just figured she was tired. She wanted to shower, go to sleep. And she did have her own room. And not to mention, the thing that I really want to clear up is the fact that she was homeless when Gary met her, when they were both working together at Blockbuster. And for the fact that she had said he was on her car is not Gary's character. It's just not his character. And he would never have done that. Never have done that. And so when Gary had told me about her, he said that she was living in her car. Her boyfriend had just broken up with her, and Gary was sweet enough to offer her a room in his apartment because he had 2 bedrooms. And I just feel like ever since then, she took complete advantage of him. Like, she was smoking, she was drinking, she was just very irresponsible. And I just didn't think that was okay considering all of his health issues. I do not think Gary would have pursued me during church ball, let alone get permission from her to do this film, let alone move out here.
Hi, fellas.
Charles, these are our neighbors, Dennis.
How are you?
And Don.
Weaver.
How you doing?
Yeah, we're your neighbors. I'm right around the corner. Don's up the street.
They've come to help us move in.
Fantastic. I knew I had a feeling about this place.
Yeah, I think you're really gonna like the neighborhood.
What's your name, and what would you like to say to everyone today?
Hi, my name is Sam. I am Shannon's brother, and I would just like to clear up some things that have been portrayed about my sister in a negative way through the media. She is not this evil person that people portray her to be. I would also like to clear up some things that have been in the recent documentary. This lady, Anna, that was living with Gary at the time, she quoted that her and Gary were an item. I've had conversation with Gary, and Gary never dated Anna. She was nothing to him except for just being like a roommate. There was one night where my sister gave me a call on the phone stating that, hey, you know what, Anna's drunk, you know, we've had this disagreement. She spit beer on me. She was acting out of control and belligerent, And my sister just said, what should I do? What kind of advice can you give to me? And I said, well, just go in your bedroom, lock the door so she can't come in. If she tries to, come in and break down the door, just call the police, And so the next day, Shannon gave me a call on the phone and said, hey, can you come over, this or that. Talked with Gary about, to let Gary know, what Anna did the night before about spitting beer on her. And Gary said, she did what? And immediately, without any hesitation, Gary kicked her out. The court battle between, Shannon and Anna on, who owns what or what not. I personally received a phone call from Anna.
Good afternoon, Sam. This is Anna Gray. I don't know if you'll remember me. We met briefly many years ago, and, it was quite brief, so I doubt you'll remember me, but you probably know who I am. I was wondering if you'd be willing to speak to me for a few minutes before we meet in court next week. So
I let Shannon's attorneys know, hey, you know what, I just received a phone call from Anna, what should I do? And they said, don't answer it, don't reply back to it, this is a court case that's ongoing.
And one day I asked Gary, I was like, so what is her issue? Like, I've never given her really a reason to hate me or not like me. And he's like, she's jealous. She's jealous. And that's when I was like, okay, well, if you guys were not an item, why is she behaving like this? And I think it's because she just wanted attachment to him and his name and his fame. And ultimately, Gary married me, not her. Not to mention, he planned the whole wedding. He planned the whole thing. I had no idea. He kept it secret for so long. When I found out about the memorial service, I was very livid. She did this without permission, and she wasn't even executor at the time of the will. And she went against his wishes, which really upset me. And I don't care how people feel about this, but all these people are portraying her to just be this perfect Mother Teresa, which people have said that in the past after he had passed away. But the fact that all of them were there, the previous people in his life that he had cut off were there. But what makes it more sickening and despicable is the fact that in his will it says that he does not want a wake, a memorial, or a ceremonial service. And they went and did that in Beverly Hills. That really, really upset me and pissed me off. The protective order that Mr. Kester had made up completely by himself. Anyway, so Gary had that voice message where he said, I want to rescind the order. Everything's good. Everything's okay. First of all, he didn't explain exactly what order it was. And he did not explain anything of that sort, that was a protective order or a temporary protective order. A. B, Gary was never threatened for the fact that I would ever harm his house, harm any of his stuff. And I think at one point, Mr. Kester did agree to the fact that that was made up. That was something that was in his own doing, because I was never served anything. And I remember when Gary was sick and he had come home from a facility where he was recovering through rehab and whatever, he had like 10 copies of it. And I just think it was Mr. Kester that took advantage of Gary, because Gary was drugged up a lot and he was on a lot of medication just for different reasons that he was going through. And I felt like he was taken advantage of at that time because that message clearly sounded like he was coming out of anesthesia, because that's not Gary's character. If he really thought that I would do something like that, I don't think I would be in his life at the end like I was. Brandy, she was an acquaintance of mine through a friend, and that is a long story, short, whatever. I'm not going to get into all the details of that. Anyway, she was an acquaintance of mine, and she was never a friend to Gary at all. She was just somebody that wanted fame. She was somebody that just wanted to get in the picture because he was famous. And I feel like she wasn't around long enough to even grasp an idea or come up with an idea that she was close to him. And the funny thing is if you see the photo of those two together, you can tell it was totally a forced photo. Gary was not happy that she was in that photo. And it just looked like, okay, go away. You got your picture now. You know, like, I know Gary. I knew exactly his attitude. And that picture, he was not smiling, and he just looked miserable. And for her to just come out and say, hey, this, she doesn't have anything to dissect, to go off of, because she wasn't around long enough. And she wasn't a friend. Like I said, she was an acquaintance. This movie came up, and he had to go to Texas for a month and a half. And they actually filmed at Mr. Cuban's house. And I thought it was cool. I thought it would be really cool. I, however, did not force him to do this movie like everybody else has said, or they think that I've done, because a lot of people, let's get this straight as well on the record, I did not force him to do anything that he did not want to do. However, I suggested it would be a good idea for him to go film that because he didn't have any recent big jobs. And I was like, hey, we got to pay the bills and get all this done. And I didn't really realize how miserable it was going to be for him. And this is when I decided to divorce him. He would call me every day and he would just blame me and say basically what everybody else is saying, like, you forced me to do this, you da-da-da-da. He just blamed me for everything because he was so miserable on the set. And that's when I decided, like, hey, I'm done. Like, you can't call me every day and treat me like this. Like, I just suggested that you do this. I did not force you. I did not say, hey, right? Or I didn't have a gun to his head either and make him do it. I just suggested that. And that really broke our marriage badly. And I hated it. And it will always be the number one thing that I regret is divorcing him, because after divorcing him, after it had finalized and went through, we were still best friends. We hung out. I think I was living with a friend for a couple days, and I was like, what the hell did I just do? Like, honestly, I was like, what in the hell did I just do? And we hung out every day. He would come get me after dialysis. We would just hang out like nothing ever happened. Like nothing ever happened. And by the time we were going to get remarried and renew our vows, it was just too late. And that is one thing that will carry me to my grave. You know, the NBC documentary really disappointed me on all aspects of it. I did not like the layout. I did not like how they just manipulated everything and twisted everything and edited everything for me to look like the bad guy, especially when I thought they had my best interests at heart. And then they flipped the script. That really sucked. I hated it because no matter what, there's always a bad guy. And, you know, with everything going on, everybody still claims and believes that I am the bad guy. No matter what I do, damned if I do, damned if I don't, there is always a villain, and the vultures will eat at you if you allow them. And I just felt like I was being attacked from every which way, and I felt like I had my back up against the wall because I was still trying to do the right thing to honor Gary's legacy, and I'm disappointed that they did not honor his legacy. considering that this was a $2 million production. They did a very shitty job at trying to portray Gary's life in all aspects. They did not discuss his passion for trains, that he loved model trains, and that was his thing, that was his life, that's what he loved to do, that's what made him happy. Okay, so this train here is actually an Amtrak car, and it's really cool. And the way that you will know Amtrak is because it has California Zephyr on the side right here. And also the really cool thing with Gary that nobody knows, I mean, a few people probably know this, but whenever life got hard, he would always tell me that he would just go on Amtrak train rides, you know, and when things got bad and he needed to clear his head, he would just go travel on trains. And that was just he just loved trains. That was his passion. And actually, before he died, we were actually going to go together. I have never personally been on an Amtrak train ride. Before he passed away, we were going to go to Colorado, and that didn't happen. And, you know, one thing for me that I've realized is if you have an opportunity to do something, do it while you can, because life is really, really short. Here is also another really cool thing that a lot of people may not know about Gary, but he also owned an arcade, and he got me into gaming. He got me into really a lot of gaming, Xbox, just all that cool stuff with anything to do with arcades. Isn't that like freaking amazing? Has his name on it and everything. Gary Coleman's Arcade. That is wildly insane. And I absolutely love this. Just to have a piece of Gary with me everywhere I go, no matter what I do, even now, is just more meaningful to have that, because I didn't know how famous he was until he passed away. Well, there have been many questions about Gary's sex life, and obviously a lot of people that's like too personal to get into, but I am very open to explaining what was going on. So most of you know that Gary had no kidneys, so he had to do dialysis, and since he could not pee, the function of being able to get an erection could not happen because there was no blood flow to his genitalia to where he could get an erection. That was hard, but that is something that I want to clarify with many people that don't understand the medical aspect of it. And he made up for it in many other ways. He was very affectionate. We went on trips together. I want to clear that up with people because a lot of people that aren't in the medical field don't completely understand all of that. And I'm so happy to be able to explain to everyone why that is. In case anyone has not seen this magazine, this is the People magazine that Gary was in after he passed away, and I love it, and I still miss him to this day. It is so hard to see pictures of him even when he was younger and I didn't even know of his fame. But it's so hard for me because I think of him all the time, and this is probably my favorite picture of him in the magazine. He's just so cute, so vibrant. But the most important thing for me is that I can only thank God for allowing us to cross paths in this lifetime. He was so taken advantage of in that documentary that they didn't honor him in many aspects of his passions in life, what he loved to do. Yeah, I just want everyone to, give that man peace that he deserves. Let's just honor Gary the way that he deserved and deserves to be honored.